So last year I did this as a series, as a 4-part series. So you're getting the condensed version, the highlights. We're only going to cover the highlighted sources because instead of doing a 4-part series, we're doing this one condensed class on all 4 topics. So the 4 topics are the 4, what I define as like the major home rituals of Shabbat. So in order, sort of, starting with candles, Kiddush, no in order, 3 meals, and then Havdallah. So we'll learn a little bit about each of those. It's kind of, this is like more of like a survey kind of a class. So we're going to jump around even in what, within each of those topics, what we're talking about, what we're focusing on, but it's really to give you a broad exposure, to learn a lot of different things about those rituals that we may be familiar with, but not know all of these details about, whether that be the certain halachic aspects, the origin, any midrashic, Kabbalistic foundation of it. So all kinds of things that we're going to learn about. So let's jump in. I will share my screen and I'll probably just talk through the sources. At any point, if someone wants to interject, if they have a question, that's fine. But certainly I'll open it up for questions at the end. So don't be shy if you have a question in the middle. I'm just going to read through everything and talk through everything. But just know also there'll be time for questions at the end, anything you're curious about. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen and here we go. So as you'll see, there are only some sources are highlighted in blue. Those are the ones we're going to look at today. So everyone now has in the chat this source sheet, the link for it, if they would like to look at other sources themselves. So I start with the blessing and then a Mishnah about what we're allowed to use for the Shabbat lights, and then get into source number 3, the first one that we'll look at. The Ramah, so the Ashkenazi gloss on the Shulchan Aruch, he says, some say to make the blessing before lighting. This is talking about the blessing on the candles, the Shabbos candles. Some say to make it after lighting. Okay. And in order for it to be over asiyato, do not derive the benefit of the mitzvah until after the blessing. You can do this by putting your hand over the candle after you light it, and then you make a bracha, and then you take away your hand. So this will sound familiar, but it also, it's a little bit different, maybe the way we do it. We're probably familiar, everyone has seen someone cover their eyes when they make the blessing on the Shabbos candles. Ramah here is saying actually put your hand over the candle, which is interesting. But the point of it remains the same. So probably everyone or most of us have seen someone do this, maybe not known why we do it that way, just know that it is done that way. So normally this concept, this halachic concept of over asiyato, that we normally have it so that we make a blessing and then do the action. That's the way things work. So we're asserting that the action that we're about to do is a mitzvah action. It's not just some random action. So before we shake a lulav, before we sit down in the, well, that's not the best example. Before we shake a lulav, an etrog is a really good example. We say the blessing first, and then we actually flip the etrog because we didn't even have it the right way before we made the blessing, and then we shake it. So here also, that's the way we want to do this mitzvah. It's a blessing on a mitzvah, and that's the way we want to do it. But we have a concern here because if we make the blessing, perhaps we're taking on Shabbat, then how do you justify? You can't light fire, certainly. That's a biblical prohibition. So we do it in this funny order, where in order to make it still like we're doing the blessing before the mitzvah action, we have to leave some part of it for after. So we're leaving the actual deriving benefit. So we light the candles. We either cover our eyes, or Ramah says cover the candle, but we cover our eyes. That's the way we do it. Most people nowadays. And then while our eyes are covered, we make the blessing, and then we look. Then we derive benefit from the lights. So that makes it so that we're doing it on the action in a way, but we're also not having any kind of potential violation of Shabbat. So that is why we do it in that order. Next source, be meticulous to make sure to beautify the lighting of the Sabbath light, the Shabbat light. There are those who light 2 candles in relation to the 2 ways we are commanded to honor Shabbat. Remember Shabbat and to keep Shabbat. Ramah, there are also those who light 3 or even 4 lights, which is their custom. You can always add to the light with more lights for additional family members or for whatever reason, but you can never subtract. So this is also one that's kind of funny because you probably just did it this way and didn't know why. And that everyone has 2 candles. It's just the standard now. But really, there's only an obligation in a technical sense to have one. You need to have a Shabbos light, which we'll learn about in the coming sources about why you need to have a Shabbos light. But there's nothing explicitly about it being like a essential to the commandment that we have two. But where do we get this idea of two from that has become so normative? We get it from the two ways in which Shabbat is mentioned in the Torah. We are told Shamor et Yom HaShabbat and Zachor et Yom HaShabbat. So keep, protect, observe, and remember the Sabbath. We're told that there's two iterations of the Ten Commandments in the Torah, and each one of those uses one of those two words, the different language there. So it became normal that we have two candles. It represents these two things, two things about Shabbat, the Shamor and Zachor, the keep and the remember. And if you want to add, says the Rama, you can always add, but you can't subtract. So it's a very common custom, one that we do in our house, that now we light, since having our son, we light Abra lights 3 candles every Shabbat, but you wouldn't want to detract from a light. You wouldn't take away light, but you can always add for another family member or for whatever else you wanted to, whatever else it means to you, if you have a reason you want to add another one. But then that would be your custom then indefinitely for the rest of your life. You'd always light that many, however many you add. Okay, Rava said, this is the next source from the Talmud now, so we're going a little backwards in the historical timeline in our sources. Rava said, it is obvious to me, in the case of a poor person who must choose between purchasing Shabbat candles for his home or Hanukkah candles, Shabbat candles for his home take precedence due to Shalom Bayit, peace in the home. Between Shabbat candles and wine for Kiddush, the Shabbat candles take precedence because of Shalom Bayit. So here often we have to think about these things, especially Talmudic times when maybe, we're blessed now that most of us don't have to make these kinds of concessions between these things. We're able to have both or all. But in a time where maybe you did have to, money was much tighter, it was much more difficult, that you have to make a decision between what am I going to get, wine or candles? What am I going to get, Hanukkah candles or Shabbos candles? I only have enough oil for this if you're using like an oil light. Those were maybe more real situations, but in whether or not it's a practical situation or not, we have to understand kind of the hierarchy and the value of each of these things. By putting them in order, we're able to understand the value of each. And therefore we have this discussion, and Shabbos candles takes precedence to both these things, the Hanukkah candles and to the wine for Kiddush. And it's because of this value of Shalom Bayit, peace in the home. So now we have to understand what that's about. So that's the next source, or we'll skip one source about it and look at another source, Magen Avraham, source 7. We say a blessing when lighting Shabbat candles. For lighting Shabbat candles is a requirement in order that we have peace in our home so that one won't stumble on wood or stone. So it's about actually making the home, lighting up the home so that it'll be safe, comfortable, good space to be in. And I think another, the idea would be, if that's your only light to have your Shabbos meal by, if that's the only light that you can, if you want to read after dinner, that's the only light you have, then it's really essential. And what's going to happen in a household, you have a family where there's nothing to do after dinner, and you eat dinner in dark. Maybe, people's frustration will get the best of them, and they'll be fighting, and there'll be all kinds of problems that can come from that. We want our Shabbos to have light to it. We want our meal to be lit up. We want to be able to enjoy each other's company or enjoy a good book or whatever it may be. Afterwards, a game, something that we can be able to bond and spend time together and be happy and not feel like we're just sitting in the dark and upset. So that's such an important value that is the reason for the mitzvah, and also the reason why it takes precedence over these other details of these other mitzvot. Okay, and finally, I want to go to the last source, just because I think it's a really nice, interesting source. This is the later source, the Mishnah Berurah. So what he says here is, for the first Shabbat, after a woman gives birth, the man should light and make the blessing. And during the days when she is in a state of nidah, she blesses alone. So I think what's interesting about this source, so this is not, I actually don't really know if this is commonly practiced, these two things. But I think there's something really important revealed in this. That's why I find this source so interesting. So the first half is about after a woman gives birth. There's something about, and so normally, which we didn't look at all the sources beforehand, but all the previous few sources talk about how it's um, every home, whether or not there's a woman of the household, needs to light Shabbos candles. But in a home where there's a husband and wife, let's say, then the woman takes precedence in it being her responsibility to light the Shabbos candles. So this is the one case, the 1 week of however many children, so a couple weeks in their whole marriage, where according to the Mishnah Brura, the man would light. So something about I think perhaps it has to do with maybe the woman's role in bringing light into the home and being a source of nurturing in the home, and maybe she at this time is the one who is in need of that kind of care, and that for that week it should be, of course, both partners should be nurturing and bring that to their relationship with each other and the home and the children. But there's something here about, it seems like the man needs for that week, when maybe her attention's on the baby, or just generally after something so difficult, being needing to heal, being vulnerable, whatever it may be, that he should take on that responsibility. And then the state of nidah part. So during the time when there's because relating to the woman's menstrual cycle, there's a separation between husband and wife in terms of not having physical relations. Here it's saying that she should also do the lighting alone, like he shouldn't stand with her. So there's something also, I think, intimate about this, that it's not touching, but even just standing there together lighting the candles, there's something very intimate about that. And whether or not we practice this way, that I don't think it would be a problem, according to most people, to bless standing to each other during that time, standing next to each other. Here there's something, I think there's something suggested about the intimacy of this act. Okay, good, and perfect timing for, that's a quarter of an hour, but actually we'll be a little quicker so we leave time for questions at the end. So I'll be a little quicker with the next sections. Okay, now we're moving on to Kiddush. So the first two sources that I'm not going to read are just the text of each, if you want to take a look at that on your own. The third source, Rava said, and some say it was Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi who said, even an individual who prays on Shabbat evening must recite the passage, and the heavens and the earth were finished by Chulu. As Rav Hamnuna said, anyone who prays on Shabbat evening and recites a passage of Chulu, the verse ascribed him credit as if he became a partner with the Holy One, blessed be he, in the act of creation. And it is stated, and the heavens and the earth were finished by Chulu. Do not read it as were finished by Chulu, rather as they finished by Achalu. And Rabbi Elazar said, from where is it derived that speech is like action, as it is stated, by the words of God the heavens were made, and all of their hosts by the breath of his mouth. So this is an interesting source. The first little play on the part towards the end or in the middle of this play on words is like a very common rabbinic thing to do in the Talmud, to play with the words to kind of teach another lesson. But the whole source is really relating to Kiddush in particular, but in general, this idea of being co-creators with God, of Kiddush being an affirmation of that, of our joining with God for creation, of the idea of creation can be done with words, that's the way God creates the world, is through words. And so we emulate that through acknowledging creation through words. There's a couple of interesting things here. And that's one of the, there's many themes that come up in the text of Kiddush that you could look at if you look at the text on your own. And one of them being the theme of creation, that we rest on Shabbat because God rested on Shabbat. We acknowledge that 6 days a week we produce and we try to create and we make the world a better place in a very active way. And then we take a step back on Shabbat and just appreciate that. So all of these things has this Talmudic root of being this acknowledgement of creation, that Kiddush that itself is an act, an affirmation of that. Okay, let's go on. The next source is similar, has a similar theme. This is Mishnah Torah, so this is Maimonides, medieval, so later than our previous Talmudic source. It is a positive commandment to express the sanctity of the Sabbath day in words. For it is written, remember to sanctify the Sabbath day. That is to say, remember in terms of praise and sanctification. One should remember it at its beginning and at its conclusion by reciting the Kiddush when the Sabbath begins and Havdallah when it ends. So here, Maimonides is saying that verse, remember I said there's two iterations of the Ten Commandments in the Torah. One of them says, remember the Sabbath day, and one of them says, keep it. He's saying that Zachor, remember, means remember it through words. So it's a biblical commandment to say Kiddush at the beginning of Shabbat, because that is how we fulfill the mitzvah from the Torah of remember the Sabbath day, is we actually remember it. We recall creation, we recall the first Sabbath, we recall that through words and over wine. And he said, and he also draws this parallel between Kiddush and Havdallah, that we have to remember it, the bookends of Shabbat. And this is actually going to be related to something that we're probably not going to learn today, but an interesting discussion about how Friday night Kiddush is biblical in origin, and Saturday day Kiddush, most hold that it's a rabbinic mitzvah, not a biblical mitzvah, as is Friday night, which is unanimously a biblical mitzvah, which will also have, there'll be consequences of that about who can or can't say it for who else. Okay, I skipped the whole section. I think it's interesting though if you want to look about why we use wine, if we have to use wine, if we can use other drinks. Let's look at one source about women and Kiddush, which relates to the previous source that I read, and you'll see why. Okay, women, this is source number 11. Women are obligated in Kiddush, even though it is a positive commandment dependent on time, because remember is connected to guard. And these women, since they are included in guard, they are also included in remember. And they can discharge men from their obligations since they are obligated biblically like them. So this is interesting. I have to explain this, give some background to this. So the first part that says, even though it is a positive commandment dependent on time. So that we have to understand there's a Mishnah that says that women are exempt from positive time-bound commandments. So that means there's negative commandments, things that we should not do, are told not to do, that everyone's obligated equally in. And then positive commandments, things that we have to actively do. So positive commandments, when from the Torah, when they're time-bound, women are not forbidden from doing it, they're exempt from doing it. And those types of commandments mean that it has to be a commandment that is fixed to a certain time, whether it be holiday related or whether it be a certain time of day, and can't be made up at a totally different time. So for example, Lulav and Sukkah are good holiday related ones that women are exempt from, but are certainly allowed and encouraged to participate in. And then like daily ones would be tzitzit and tefillin and saying Kriyat Shema, things like that. Okay, so, but here it's saying, because remember and guard, so the positive and the negative biblical commandments of Shabbat are related, therefore equally obligated in both. So this exemption that normally applies for women does not apply on Shabbat. They are obligated in the biblical commandments of Shabbat, and therefore, when you have an equal level of obligation with someone else, therefore you can exempt them from their obligation. So in order to make Kiddush for someone else, it has to be that you have the same level of obligation. That's the way it works with all commandments, that in order to say something on someone's behalf and they can also be exempt, it has to be that you're of equal level. If someone has a lower level obligation, they can't exempt someone with a higher level obligation. So because men and women both have a biblical obligation in Kiddush for Friday night, then therefore women can make Kiddush for men. So that's an important source, an important thing to know, that's no problem who makes Kiddush Friday night. Okay, sitting versus standing. I highlighted all the sources for this one because I think it's an interesting topic. Okay, sitting versus standing. How do we what is the choreography for Kiddush? And there's some interesting variables at play in how we make this decision. Okay, first source, Shulchan Aruch. One should make Kiddush on a full cup of wine that is not blemished, and to require all that is required for the cup of Birkat HaMazon, and to say Vayechulu while standing, and afterwards one says Berei Pri Hagafen, and afterwards one says Kiddush. Ramah says, one may stand during the time of Kiddush, but it is better to sit. Our custom is to sit even while saying Vayechulu, except when we begin we stand a bit to honor Hashem, because we begin Yom HaShishi Vayechulu Hashemayim, and it hints to Hashem in the first letters of this phrase. Okay, we're gonna have to break this down. The last part was just saying that Yom HaShishi Vayechulu Hashemayim spells Yud Hey, and then Vayechulu Hashemayim Vav Hey. So he's saying it's like an acronym of God's name, the first letter of each of those words. So that's just I guess spiritual kind of idea there. But talking about sitting versus standing, he breaks the text of Kiddush down into 3 parts. So you have the initial verses, and then you have the blessing just B'rei Pri Hagafen, and then you have the next paragraph that ends with Mikadesh HaShabbat, just for being a point of reference. So let's break this down a little more with these other sources about why is he saying sitting is better? Why is he saying stand a bit in the beginning to honor Hashem? The Ramah doesn't really explain so thoroughly here, but in that first source, but it will be explained. Okay, source 13. Shmuel said, this is from the Talmud, there's no valid Kiddush except in the place of one's Shabbat meal. So meaning this is relevant because people will know we make Kiddush in shul. We do it both Friday and Saturday. And Kiddush, it's important to make Kiddush in shul. It was established Friday night, actually for like travelers, so that people would at least hear Kiddush even if they didn't have a meal to go to. But Saturday we always do it because you have to make Kiddush if you're going to eat anything. We don't eat Shabbos day before making Kiddush. But that does not change the fact that you're always supposed to make Kiddush at the place of of your actual Shabbat meal. So if you go to shul Saturday, God willing we will again soon, you should hear Kiddush before you eat anything from Kiddush. We use that word a lot, I guess. So after the service, if you go down to Kiddush and you want to eat something, make sure you listen to the rabbi make Kiddush, and then it's fine to eat. But that does not change the fact that then if you go home and have Shabbos lunch, you should still make Kiddush there. We always have to make Kiddush at the place of the meal. Okay, so this will help us understand the next source. But it is better to sit. So this is the Mishnah Berurah, the commentary on source number 12. He's writing on that phrase, but it is better to sit. That in this manner, it is more accurately Kiddush at the place of the meal, since he is sitting at the place of his meal at the moment of Kiddush. And since one person is exempting all the others in their obligation, it is necessary to have them fixed together, and sitting together is considered fixed together. According to that opinion, those who are listening also need to be sitting, and it's best to be careful for this. In any case, one needs to be cautious that the listeners are together at the time of Kiddush in order to fulfill the obligation, and they should not be spread out and walk one here and one there, because this is not called fixed at all. Okay, what is Mishnah Berurah saying? He's saying that we have to have Kiddush, the Talmud said, b'makom seuda, the place of the meal. And he's saying, what is more at the place of the meal than sitting together at a table? If people are walking around, doing their own thing, are you really eating a meal together? No, it's probably or at least it's not the most ideal representation of what it means to be together at the place of the meal. Being together at the place of the meal means sitting at a table. So in order to fully fulfill this idea of being b'makom seuda, being at the place of the meal, it is best to be sitting. If you're all sitting at the table together, you're clearly a group, you're clearly a unit. Therefore, it makes it more proper that someone's fulfilling other people. It makes that it's the best kind of way of doing that. And so therefore, sitting. Okay. So now we're going to see what are the sources for standing, because we know there's different customs, different ways people do it. Actually, we'll see there's 3 customs that are 3 different customs of the choreography for Kiddush. Source number 15, and say vayechulu while standing, since this is edut, testimony, on the creation of the heavens and the earth, and edut requires standing. And even though we say it in davening, he should repeat it and say it in order to exempt his sons and daughters and household. Okay, so here it's saying, standing makes sense for that first part, the Vayechulu Hashemayim B'haaretz, because that part is a testimony. It's edut. It's we're witnessing. We're testifying to God's creation of the world by saying those words. And what does a witness do when they're giving testimony? We say that they stand, and therefore we should stand. And the second reason for standing is in source 16. Come and let us go out to greet the bride and the queen. And some say that this is what he should say. Come and let us go out to greet the Shabbat, the bride, the queen. Rabbi Yanai would wrap himself in his talit and stand at the eve of Shabbat at twilight, saying, "Come bride, come bride." So the other reason for standing relates to this, and it relates also to something we do during Lechado D. If you've been at shul on Friday night, really, I think any shul, I think it's very normative custom that we sing Lechado D. We're sitting down for most of it. At the end, we stand up, we turn, we face a door, the entrance, and we are greeting that Lechado D is already it's a Kabbalistic poem. It's 16th century, and it has this idea of Shabbat being this queen, this bride that we should actually physically get up to greet. So that would be if Friday night Kiddush is also, we're bringing in Shabbat, we're affirming all of these values of Shabbat, we're affirming God's creation. Doesn't it make sense to stand for that? So remember, think back to the first source on Kiddush that we said, or in this section at least, about the standing and sitting, that we said that there are 3 sections of Kiddush. There's the initial verses that are about creation. There's the Brei Pri Hagafen, and then there's the Kiddush itself, which is the Mekadesh HaShabbat, the sanctifying Shabbat day, that paragraph and that blessing. So there's 3 customs. You could stand for all of it, you could sit for all of it, or you could stand in the beginning for the parts that require standing, which is the first parts according to the last 2 sources, and sitting for the part that you want to be most bimakom seuda. So in a very so people have all different customs, but in a very technical sense, I've read it written that if you have no custom, then the most ideal would be to stand and then sit. So stand for the first paragraph, sit for Brei Pri Hagafen and Mekadesh HaShabbat, for Friday night, that is, because it's fulfilling all of the things. Then you're at Makom Seuda for the Kiddush part, you're sitting at the table, and you're also doing the testimony and the Kabbalistic spiritual welcoming of the Shabbat queen by standing. Okay, this is a lot of stuff. So we're doing a 4-week course, so we're really jumping around here. So please ask questions you have, or write them down to ask at the end when we'll do the open up for questions from everyone. Okay, good. So now we're up to the 3 meals. So the first source is just where we derive the idea of oneg Shabbat, delighting in the Shabbat, having joy in it, and kavod Shabbat, to honor the Shabbat. Let's read a little bit about that. Shulchan Aruch: a person should arise on Friday early to prepare for Shabbat. Even if he has many servants to serve him, he should find something small to do for the honor of Shabbat. We see this with Rav Chisda, who would cut vegetables finely, Rabbah and Rav Yosef, who would chop wood, Rabbi Zera, who would light the flame, and Rav Nachman, who would clean the house and replace the weekday cutlery with the cutlery designed for Shabbat. We can emulate these people, and one should not say, "It is unbecoming of me," for this is the honor of Shabbat. Ramah, additionally, one should sharpen his knife for the ease of eating on Shabbat, on our Shabbat, for this honors the Shabbat and helps him eat. Okay, so I think it's a really nice source. It's remembering these Talmudic rabbis and what they would do to honor Shabbat. So doing regular kind of household chores for the sake of honoring Shabbat is not beneath anyone. Everyone should do it. Everyone should take an active part in preparation for Shabbat, whatever way that is, whether you cook or you clean or both, or just to have a role in that. And that's to honor Shabbat. And prepare to make Shabbat more enjoyable by making sure everything is prepared properly, exactly how you would like it on Shabbat. Okay, a person should have more, and I'm relating that to the meals are also going to be expressions of those values of honoring and enjoying Shabbat. A person should have more meat, wine, and treats to the best of his ability. So you should have things that you enjoy on Shabbat. So for the rabbis, that was typically for them the paradigmatic examples of really like treating oneself and enjoying eating and drinking would be meat and wine. But it could also be for whatever you find most enjoyable. You should make that special for Shabbat. Anything that you love that you don't eat or can't make the time for during the week. It's great to bring that into your Shabbat practice, your Shabbat meals. Okay, source number 4. It is forbidden to fast until 6 hours on Shabbat. Ramah, even for the purpose of learning or praying, it is forbidden to fast. Some say that a person who is harmed by eating, such that it is their delight not to eat, should not eat. Ramah, and so with one who finds delight in weeping, in order that their pain will leave their heart, such a person is permitted to weep on Shabbat. So just, I think, an interesting source that we're supposed to eat on Shabbat. We're not allowed to fast, but we're also supposed to have enjoyment on Shabbat. We're supposed to be able to, feel what we want to feel, to experience what we want to experience, to really not, emotionally or spiritually restrict ourselves. So the regular person should eat, should enjoy in the ways that people normally do. And if that's not for you, then you find other ways, or if you need it on that particular Shabbat, you need like some kind of, emotional catharsis of something, and it's okay, even though that's not the ideal on Shabbat. It's okay to do because that's what you need. Okay, the 3 meals, really getting into the 3 meals now, not just the background of joy and honor of Shabbat. The sages taught in a Braita, how many meals is a person obligated to eat on Shabbat? 3. Rav Chisda says 4. Rabbi Yochanan said, and both of them derived their opinions from one verse, and Moses said, eat it today, for today is Shabbat for God. Today you will not find it in the field. Okay, so how are we getting that from this verse? And what we say, our answer, which is 3. I'm not sure about the rabbi who said 4, but the 3 answer, which is the one that we hold by. How do we get to that? Rashi explains 3 todays, the number of the 3 meals of Shabbat. So if you look at that verse and it says, eat it today, for today is Shabbat for God. Today you will find it. So it says Hayom 3 times in that verse. And from there, we derive that there are 3 meals. So that's the source that we traced it back to. Lechem Mishnah, meaning that means that we have a double portion of bread on Shabbat. We have the custom to spread a covering and then make Kiddush. And the explanation is a remembrance of the manna, that it would fall on Shabbat and Yom Tov, and there would be dew above and below the manna in between. Okay, so this is one of the reasons, we'll see the other one next. This is one of the reasons that we cover the challah before we make Kiddush. And it says that it's a remembrance of the manna. So the manna would fall, it would have dew above and below it. And so too, we take our challah and we have it on a tray of some sort, and we put a cover over it. And therefore it's covered on both sides, just like the manna was. Okay, the next source from the Torah. Our custom is to bring out the challahs before Kiddush and to spread a covering and to make Kiddush. And in the Jerusalem Talmud, it says, so the challah won't be embarrassed, meaning since it was first in the verse from the Torah and was fitting to come first in the blessings. So challah, you normally, challah, the blessing on bread, is the first blessing. So how do we justify here making the blessing on Kiddush first? We want to do the Kiddush to sanctify the Sabbath day, to bring in the Sabbath. And so we have to be, whether it's about this kind of cute idea that the challah itself is actually embarrassed, that it was put aside even though it should be first, or it's about maybe just more like a more practical halakhic thing that you're kind of like not acknowledging that the challah is there in order to justify why you're making this blessing that doesn't come first. But either way, that's the other idea. It's a remembrance of the manna, or it's about out of respect to the challah, or just the normal order of brachot that we do. Okay, good. That's good for 3 meals. And we're going to section 4. Finally, Havdallah. So now we're already at the end of Shabbat. So we'll learn about the parts of Havdallah, the sources for each. Okay, source number 3. It is a positive mitzvah from the Torah to sanctify the Sabbath day with words, and so says Scripture explicitly, remember the Sabbath. And it needs to be remembered at its entry with Kiddush and at its leaving with Havdallah. So we saw a similar source earlier from, I think it was the Maimonides source, and now another source saying that we do it both. We fulfill that mitzvah of remember the Sabbath, both at the beginning and at the end. It's these bookends of Shabbat acknowledgement. Okay, the order of Havdallah: wine, spices, candle, separation. Havdallah, meaning Havdallah. Its acronym is Yabneh, and one must be careful that the cup is not spoiled. Ramah, and it is customary to say before Havdallah that is done at home, behold the God of my salvation, the cup of my salvation I raise. the Jews had light as a good omen. So those are all the verses that are currently part of our like fixed liturgy of Havdallah, that we say these verses before we actually get to the 4 brachot. And at the time of Havdallah, one should look at the cup and candle, and it's customary to spill a little wine on the ground before one says the blessing so that the cup will not be spoiled. The reason for spilling the wine, because it is said any home where wine is not poured out like water is not blessed. So we do this as a good omen at the beginning of the week, and we pour some of the cup from the cup after Havdallah and extinguish the candle in it because of the light of the mitzvah. So it's why we do that. We pour a little wine and then put out the light at the end of Havdallah. It's showing it's a good omen for blessing, and it's also showing how precious the mitzvah is to us, that we're using a little bit of wine to facilitate ending it. Okay, source number 6. At first, the rabbis placed Havdallah as a part of the Amidah in the evening service. When the people became richer, they arranged for it to be said over the cup of wine. When the people became poor again, they again fixed it in the prayers. And they said, he who pronounces the separation of the prayers must do it again over the cup of wine. So this is just, I think, a really interesting source about Jewish history and how the rabbis have to adapt and meet the needs of the Jewish people. So Havdallah meaning saying the words of acknowledging the separation between Shabbat and Chol and the regular week. So right now, in the first weekday blessing of our Mariv Amidah on Saturday night, there's like a excerpt of Havdallah. There's a text that says Havdallah. So that's currently still part of our liturgy. So the rabbis went back and forth based on the socioeconomics of the Jewish community of their time. They said first, when people were poor, they wanted them to only have to do Havdallah in the Amidah, in the text of their prayers. And then they said, no, do it over a cup of wine with all these other things when the people had more money. And then it kind of went back and forth, and eventually we got stuck with both. So we do it, there's words of Havdallah in our Mariv Amidah for Saturday night. And there's also the Havdallah that we do at home with the candle and the samim and the wine or some other drink. So we have both, but the history of that was because it went back and forth, meeting the needs of the Jewish people and what they were capable of doing financially. 7, you can make Havdallah on beer if it is Chamar Medina, and this is the case for all other drinks except for water. We are accustomed to make Havdallah at the end of Pesach on beer and not wine, as it is more precious to us. So Chamar Medina is this idea of it's like a regular drink of the place in which you live, that it's like a respectable drink that people enjoy. So you can make Havdallah, and so too you can make Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon Kiddush on another drink other than wine. On Friday night we make it on wine, and if we don't have wine, we actually make it on the challah. So we don't use other drinks for Friday night. We use wine or grape juice. But on Saturday you can use another drink, and for Havdallah you can use another drink. It can't be water, but it could be something else that you enjoy and is like a decent drink where you're from that people like. It could be like your favorite soda. It could be a whiskey or a beer. The Ramah here adds to the Shulchan Aruch that we, at the end of Pesach, there's a custom to do it on beer because it's more precious to us, so that we haven't had beer in 8 days at least. And if you like beer, maybe that was a long time. And also maybe just in general, just not having all of the yummy wheat and other chametz things that maybe you're craving some chametz things. So that's just a custom he had to do it on beer that I like to do. I think it's a nice one. Good. So that's the wine. The samim. As Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, the Holy One, blessed be He, gives a person an additional soul on Shabbat Eve, and at the conclusion of Shabbat, removes it from him. As it is stated, he ceased from the work and was refreshed. Vayinafash. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish expounds the verse as follows: since he ceased from work, and now Shabbat has concluded, and his additional soul is removed from him, woe, vai, for the additional soul, nefesh, that is lost. So vayinafash, he says, oi for the nefesh. Is the way Reish Lakish. So again, another nice little play on words to make a point that there's a neshama yetera, an additional soul that we have on Shabbat that leaves when Shabbat concludes, and therefore we are losing something spiritually, and maybe we need something to kind of be a replacement for that, and the spices give us a little piece of that. Mishnah Brewer says, if you don't have spices, you don't have to go looking for some, because we only bless them to revive the spirit. which is pain at the exiting of Shabbat. So he's saying here that it's not like technically it doesn't nullify or make invalid your Havdallah if you do it without the besamim and the blessing on besamim, because it's really just about you. It's about your spiritual reviving, having something nice and enjoyable. It's not essential to the ritual working or doing, being the ritual it's supposed to be. Now, it is preferable to bless over a torch. And there is one opinion that if you don't have a torch, then you have to light another candle for Havdalah aside from the candle that is being used to light up the home. Ramah, a candle that has 2 wicks is called a torch. So there's just an idea here of that should be like this special kind of candle. They call it a torch in the Talmud. And torch means 2 wicks or more. So our Havdalah candles today are really like beautiful and intricate. They're mostly like many wicks, not even 2, many. So that's always great if you're beautifying the mitzvah. But if you don't have a Havdalah candle, you would just hold 2 candles together so that there's 2 wicks, so that it's not just a regular candle. That's how you would do it without having a proper Havdalah candle. So you can just take 2 Hanukkah candles or something and hold the wicks together, and that works fine. It is customary to look. The reason is that one can distinguish the light between each finger, and similarly, we look at the fingernails to see if one can distinguish the light between each finger, like one can distinguish between the nail and the flesh. And furthermore, because fingernails are a good omen because they grow forever. And we look at the palms of our hands because the lines on our hands have an omen that that can be blessed. So we have that custom that when we're looking at when we make the blessing on the fire, we look at the light on our fingernails, and he's saying there's a couple of reasons for that. Specifically, the fingernails, he's saying it's a good omen because they grow. But also, we want to use the light. We want to be able to distinguish something. So we're distinguishing our fingernails from the finger, and we're therefore saying that we're using the light. We're actually benefiting from the light that we couldn't have lit a light while it was still Shabbat. Now that it's not Shabbat, we can, and therefore we want to actually use it for something. Okay. And Elohim blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. He blessed it with light, because this is source 12. Because the sun began to set on Friday night, and the light began to shine, all began to praise. Rabbi Levi, in the name of Rabbi Zera, said, 36 hours the light shined, 12 on Sabbath eve, 12 on Sabbath night, and 12 on Shabbat day. When the sun then began to set at the end of the Sabbath and began to get dark, Adam became afraid. What did God do? He appointed for Adam 2 flints, and he struck one against the other, and light emanated from them. And Adam made a blessing on it. What did he say? Borei meorei ha'esh, who creates light sources for fire. Why do we say this blessing at the end of Shabbat? Because this was the beginning of its creation. So this is a midrash that is saying that Adam Harishon, the first person, Adam, was created on the 6th day of creation, and his whole life until the end of Shabbat had been in light. That it was light on the day he was created, and then God made it light for all of Shabbat. And then the sun began to set, and he got really afraid. So God gave him fire to help with his fear and what he was going through. And therefore, when the remembrance of that is when Shabbat goes out, and therefore we have the light when Shabbat goes out as a remembrance of this midrashic story about the first person and the first Shabbat. Okay, source 15. One who forgot and did not make Havdallah on Saturday night can make Havdallah until the end of Tuesday. There are those who say that we do not make Havdallah except for all of Sunday and no further, and specifically Borei Pri Agafen and Amavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. However, over a candle and spices, we did not make a blessing except Saturday night. So remember, we have 4 blessings in Havdallah. We have all the verses that precede them, and then we have 4 blessings: wine, and then the samim, the spices, then the candle, and then the Havdallah, actually the blessing of Havdallah, the one that acknowledges separation between holy and mundane. So the final part of this says that if you don't do it on Saturday night, you would just do the wine and the Havdallah blessing. And based on the sources we just learned, that makes total sense. Because remember, we learned the spices are about your losing that additional soul. So that's only Saturday night relevant, because that's when we're going through that struggle. And then also the fire being referenced to this midrash is also only relevant Saturday night. So Saturday night we do all 4 blessings, but if you happen to have to do it later, those 2 in the middle wouldn't be needed or wouldn't be so relevant. Finally, last source, a little bit about, we have a custom to sing Eliyahu Hanavi after Havdallah. Why is that? On Motzei Shabbat, because the Talmud explains, Eliyahu Hanavi cannot come on either Erev Shabbat or Erev Yom Tov because of the hassle. Rashi explains that everyone would go out to greet him and not have any time to get ready for Shabbat. Therefore, now that Shabbat is over and he is able to come, we pray that he should come soon and bring us good tidings. So Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu the prophet, who is supposed to be the person to usher in the Messianic age. I love this source because it's saying he can't come before Shabbat or before a holiday because Jews are too busy getting ready and we can't be distracted. It's no good. So we have to. He has to come later. So the first time he can come is Motzei Shabbat. We don't even the ushering in of the Messianic age can't take precedence to us doing Shabbat properly. So it needs to wait. It needs to wait till after, which is just, I think, such a perfect source and a great way to end. So I will stop sharing the screen, say hello to everyone,